Now we know how our light meter works. Now we're going to show how to use it to do a lighting ratio. Again, this may be reviewed for a lot of you. Lighting ratio is just a way to measure the difference between the key light and the fill light. Key light is your main light, fill light is your sort of secondary light. We're using a setup where it's basically totally even right now, so which is your key and which is your fill at this moment, it doesn't really matter. We're going to be keeping one the same and then bring the other one down as we change the ratio. That means that one we keep the same will be our key, and that one that we're bringing down will be our fill. So to demonstrate that, we have the lovely Hermione Granger is here helping us out. So what I need to do to figure out our ratio is I need to get a meter reading for both sides, right, of the face, and then I need to see how many stops apart those two readings are, right? So how much brighter is it on one side than the other, right? And it's important that we're doing it in stops, right? So that's why we use our light meter. They'll give a meter reading on one side, meter reading on the other side. We figure out how many stops apart those two readings are. That allows us to figure out our ratio. So right now, if I meter over here and over there, this is F8 at a 30th. This is F8 also at a 30th. So because the ratio is the same, right, or excuse me, because the meter reading is the same, our ratio is 1 to 1. So that's how you know you have a 1-to-1 ratio, both sides, identical meter reading. So that's 1 to 1. I'm going to take a picture. Okay, and now we need to do a ratio of 1 to 2. So 1 to 2 is a one-stop difference between the two sides. So we're going to keep our key light the same, right? So that was at a 30th. So if I want a one-stop difference, right, I want the other side to be one stop darker, my meter reading is going to be, if I'm at a 30th on this side, it's going to be at a 15th on that side, right? Meaning it's telling us that that is one stop darker on the other side. So I'm going to knock over my set. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to turn down my light a little bit. Now, if you can't dim it, you can always move the light farther away. All right, that's a 20th. $13th, that's pretty damn close. There you go, 15th. Okay, so this is now a ratio of 1 to 2. It may look about the same on the video, or it may look a little weird on the video. The video camera that's recording this is auto exposure. So that means that it's going to be adjusting the exposure as I change the lighting, meaning that it's not super accurate. So when I take the picture, that's going to be what we should look at. Things to think about as you're doing this, right? When I'm doing these meter readings, right, don't stand in your own light, right? That's not helpful. When you're doing the meter reading, right, so I'm not going to stand on my own light, I'm also going to try and isolate what my meter is measuring, right? So if I put it out here in the front, that's getting some of this light from over there, some of that light from over there. What I want is the difference between the two sides, right? So I'm going to isolate it by going to this side and then to that side. Also, it's really helpful if I have my lights kind of separate, right? Not meaning that they're far apart, but meaning that one is lighting from one side, one's from the other side. If both of them were in the front, then both lights are getting both sides of the face. All right, a little bit harder to tell what my ratio is on any kind of like, or not harder to tell what it is, harder to control it. All right, if I turn down one light, it's turning down the light on both sides of the face. Right now, right, we have one light hitting this side, one light hitting the other side. They do look a little bit different because the lights are actually, one is a softer light, one's a harder light. So one's going to feel a little bit brighter because it's kind of more glary. But again, if we look at the tone on the cheeks, that's going to give us a pretty good, I want to say reflection, but it is reflecting, well, no, it is reflecting a little bit, but it's going to give us a pretty accurate representation of what that light is. All right, so now we're at 1 to 2. Take a picture. One to 2 is a difference of 1 stop. So the way to think about it being a ratio of 1 to 2, right, or the way that I think about it, is that you take the number of stops difference, right? Right now we have a 1 stop difference, and you write down the number 2 that many times, right? So if we have currently a 1 stop difference, I'm going to write the number 2 down once. So I have a 1 to 2 ratio. Next, we're going to go to a 2 stop difference. So again, this side doesn't change, and when I'm taking these pictures, also my exposure doesn't change, right? Because I'm exposing for my key side, right? My fill side is getting darker, my key side stays the same, so my exposure in my photograph stays the same. And this over here, right, stays the same, still a 30th, still kicking in the background. Come over here, and we were at a 15th. We want it to be half of that, so we're going to go down to an 8th. 10th. Might be a bit too much. An 8th. Okay, so now we are at a 2 stop difference. So a 2 stop difference is a ratio of 1 to 4. Right, so I have 2 stops, so I write down 2 once, I write down 2 twice, and then I multiply those 2's together. So what is 2 times 2?
4.
4, right? So ratio 1 to 4 is a 2 stop difference. Let's go ahead and take this picture. Now, lastly, we want to do a, that was 2 stops, we want to do a 3 stop ratio. So if I was at an 1/8 over there, I want it to be, again, 1 step darker than that. So 1 step darker than an 1/8 of a second would be a 1/4 of a second. Let's see if that's... Okay, so right now I've turned that light off entirely, and I'm still a little bit brighter than a 1/4 of a second. I'm still at a 1/5 of a second. So one way to solve that is to use negative fill, right? So I have this big light over here coming across, bouncing off whatever's over there. If I put this nice black card, yeah, it is bouncing off that. If I put this big black card, okay, stand up, over there, that's going to give me a little bit more shadow than I would have otherwise. And yeah, look at that. Thank you. And that puts me down at a 1/4. So again, right, the light that we're getting in our photograph is not simply from that light. It's also whatever our ambient light is. It's whatever light is bouncing back. So now I have, right, I'm going to put this back over there and hold it up. Now I have a 3 stop difference. So I'm going to have 2 once, 2 twice, 2 3 times. So that's 2 times 2.
4.
Times 2. 4 times 2.
8.
8. So that is a ratio of 1 to 8. right? So a 3-stop difference is not a 1-to-3 ratio. A 3-stop difference is 2 times 2 times 2, 1-to-8 ratio. So I'm going to put that back up and take a picture of it, and we're good. High five.